We often read or study ancient writings, but when we purchase these books today, they've often been printed in just the last few years. They're new, modern, translated copies of the ancient writing. So how can we know that what we purchase and read today is true to the original, that it says what it was meant to say? Well, that's easy if the author is still alive. But again, we're talking about ancient writings. All of our ancient writings began in a form like this, written on papyrus or a similar material. Because of that, they don't last very long. And as a result, we have no original autographs of any of our works of antiquity in existence today. As these manuscripts are worn out, they are copied in order to be preserved for future generations. And so when we read a book today, we are reading a copy of a copy. That is a copy of a copy of a copy. Do you get the picture? So the real question we have is, can these copies we read today be considered accurate and trustworthy? Well, there are two important things. The first one is the number of these manuscripts we have. 10 manuscripts that are largely in agreement is much better than only 2 manuscripts with discrepancies. And the second item is the number of years that elapsed between the original writing or event and the oldest copy we have in existence today. So let's take a look at just how trustworthy some of the ancient writings are that we have today. Let's begin with the famed Athenian philosopher Plato. We believe what he wrote to be true because we have 7 manuscripts still in existence today, as illustrated by the 7 ping pong balls here on the table. However, 1,200 years elapsed between the time of Plato and the oldest one of those manuscripts still in existence. How about a guy named Herodotus? His name may be a little less familiar to many of us, but he is nonetheless very important. He is a historian from ancient times, and much of what we know and believe to be true about antiquity comes from what he wrote. And we can believe what he wrote because we have 8 of his manuscripts still in existence, with about 1,300 years having transpired between the time of Herodotus and the oldest one of those in existence. Let's talk about a guy named Julius Caesar that we all studied in school, who led the Roman Empire and had great conquest. We believe that to be true because we have 10 of his manuscripts still in existence and only 950 years having transpired between the time of Julius Caesar and the oldest of those manuscripts. How about Aristotle, the student of Plato? He gave us the foundation for our ideas of logic in the school of philosophy. We believe what he wrote because we have 49 manuscripts still in existence today. But again, about 1,400 years have transpired between the time of Aristotle and the oldest manuscript we have today. Let's take a look at something we all probably had to read in English class, something called the Iliad and the Odyssey by Homer. And we may have wondered as we were reading that, how do we know if this is what it's supposed to be? Why are we reading this? Is it even true? Likely it was. And the reason for that? We have 643 of Homer's manuscripts still in existence, with less than 500 years having elapsed between the time of Homer and the oldest one of those still in existence. So the question for us today is, how about the Bible? Well, as one scholar puts it, the Bible actually suffers from an embarrassment of riches. As you can see on the table here, we have over 200 ping pong balls to represent the number of manuscripts that we still have in existence today. The only problem? That's not the correct number. We simply couldn't fit the correct number on the table. That was approximately 5,700. The problem is that only represents the Greek translation of the New Testament. It's not counting more than 10,000 copies in Latin, over 9,000 copies in languages of the day like Syriac and Coptic. And then what about the Old Testament? Well, we have over 1,500 copies of a Greek translation of the Old Testament done before the time of Jesus, known as the Septuagint. We have over 200 manuscripts from the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls that are actually as old as before the time of Jesus. And then we have well over 10,000 manuscripts in Hebrew still in existence. All told, we have over 35,000 manuscripts of the Bible in existence today. Well, what about the second factor of time? Well, as we discussed with the Old Testament, our version of the Old Testament that we have today and those manuscripts actually existed before the time of Jesus. The reason that's significant is he often quoted from it, he taught it as the Word of God, said it was the Word from the Father, and never once did he suggest that there was any correction that needed to be made. As for the New Testament, most of our manuscripts have less than 100 years elapsed from the time of the eyewitness and the writing to the oldest manuscript we have today. And in one case, only 29 years. You know what that means? That means that when our manuscripts we have today were issued, there were people alive that were either eyewitnesses or children of those eyewitnesses to say, wait a minute, Jesus never said that. Wait a minute, Paul never did that. But no such ancient rebuttals exist. So, how accurate and trustworthy is our Bible? The evidence seems pretty clear to me.